Hi, this is Brian Anderson, and I'm going to be bringing you another biblical devotion, this time from Genesis chapters 5 and 6. And as you've probably figured out by now, I'm just going through the Old Testament chapter by chapter and picking out the nuggets that the Lord has spoken to my heart as I was reading through. So what I'd like to do in this devotion is show you three effects of the fall that come to the surface as you're reading through these chapters. The first one is the transmission of a sinful human nature from the parent to the child. And we see that in chapter 5, verse 1. It says, "In the day when God created man, he made him in the likeness of God." But then 2 verses later, it says, "When Adam had lived 130 years, he became the father of a son in his own likeness." So Adam was created in God's likeness, which was perfect, but then Adam, after he had fallen and become corrupt because of sin, he fathered a son in his corrupt likeness. So he passes on his sinful human nature to his children. That's the first effect of the fall. The second one is the effect of death. Now, before the fall of man, there was no death, at least human death that we know anything about. After the fall, death is universal. Everyone dies. And we see that very dramatically when we get to chapter 5, and we see this little phrase that comes up again and again, "and he died." It comes up in chapter 5, verse 5, 8, 11, 14, 17, 20, 27, and 31. To make his point, God is saying, sin brings forth death. And that shouldn't surprise us because Romans 6:23 says that the wages of sin is death. And in Ezekiel, it says, "The soul that sins shall surely die." So first we have the corruption of a sinful nature, and it's passed on to the children. Then we see death come as a result of the effects of the fall. And then the third consequence of the fall is the total depravity of the entire human race. And we see that very clearly in Genesis 6, verse 5. "Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." Every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. I don't think God could have said this any clearer to help us understand that the entire human race has been devastated and impacted and corrupted by sin. Sin is kind of like a contagious virus, maybe a little bit like COVID. Sin comes in and it doesn't just infect certain people, it infects everybody. And when it comes into our system, our soul, it begins to work and it affects the entire body, the mind, the emotions, the will, the soul. The entirety of the person has now been corrupted and infected by this virus. And ultimately, that virus will kill us. And it will kill every human being. That's what sin does. But the good news is that God can arrest this depravity in our lives by the sanctifying work of the Holy Spirit, and he can defeat the death that sin brings in by the resurrecting power of Jesus Christ. So the good news is that there is redemption in Jesus Christ from all of the effects of sin, now and in our eternity in the future. So my question to you is your entire trust in Jesus Christ to save you from sin? I hope that it is.